Iraq and Syria were seeing new unspeakable acts of barbarity. Now add to that Algeria. John Sopel, BBC News, New York.
Well, for more on the discussions that have been taking place here up at the United Nations, I was joined a short time ago by Republican Senator Ron Johnson. He's part of the US delegation here. He's also a member of the Foreign Relations Committee. Senator Johnson, you've been having conversations up here at the United Nations with members from Arab delegations. What are you hearing from them about their commitment to joining a coalition against the Islamic State?
Well, I certainly believe they understand that they really are facing an existential threat here with ISIS. I think they're starting to see, how important this is for them to be involved. And what I'm trying to convey is that the only way America will have the public opinion support to back the long-term actions is if Americans see the Arab states fully committed, fully involved both militarily and financially. And the model I've been using is really the first Gulf state, the first Gulf War, where America only footed about 15% of that cost, and the Arab states really footed a fair amount of that the financial cost.
What's changed their minds? Because we know that in countries like Saudi Arabia and Qatar, there has been, if not direct government support, tacit support for the Islamic State.
I don't know what complex games they've been playing in the past. They've been able to kind of draw the attention off sometimes their own corruption, their own brutality, their own regimes, and
But you do believe the change is real?
It has to be. All I can say is it has to be. I don't see how you can take a look at the success of ISIS, the territory they've grown, their ability to finance themselves, the discipline, the patience, the strategic thinking they've shown here, and not be pretty concerned about what threat they represent to your state in the Arab world there.
Senator, when you speak to your voters in Wisconsin, do you think they fully understand what we heard President Obama say today, that this is a long-term struggle that America has to be involved in now? This is not going to be over with a few nights of bombing, which perhaps might be what people think it could be.
I think they believe that, but what they're hoping for is, this is like a movie, Independence Day, where, you have a 2-week conflict, you got the perfect strategy, you defeat the enemy, and then Will Smith's walking through the desert with his parachute under his, it's all done. It's not going to be like that. We've been, Islamic terrorists have been at war with the West for 20 years. In America here, they tried to bring down the World Trade Center towers in 1993. So this is going to be a long-term struggle. It's going to be very difficult to ultimately defeat it.
But look at the speed with which people have forgotten about Afghanistan and, frankly, for a few years totally forgot about Iraq in this country too.
Well, of course, part of that is, our president did announce a year ago the war on terror was over. Al-Qaeda was on the run, trying to soothe everybody. And so let's face it, nobody likes to really face hard truths or hard realities. And you get political leadership not being, right, not being honest with the American public. I mean, people always be hopeful. So, right now, it's kind of hard to turn your face away from this. You have to face this reality. So I appreciate the fact that President Obama is becoming more forthright with the American public, that he's starting to act. But this is going to have to go on a sustained basis. We've got to continue to tell the American people why ISIS, why the events in Ukraine, around the world, why that represents a real clear and present danger to America.
You have said in the past that you don't believe that President Obama is 100% committed to defeating ISIS. You listened to him today. Have you changed your mind?
What I said in his original speech, when he took some actions off the table, and said that our safety, our security depends on our willingness to do what it takes to defend this nation. What he really meant, what I heard in that speech, was do what it takes up to a point. We got to get rid of the up to a point. And
do you think he's done that now?
I hope so. Again, I appreciate and I want to be supportive of his actions. Listen, I want this president to succeed, because if he succeeds, America and the world stays safe and secure. So I want to do everything I can to support strong and resolute action, because that's what it's going to take.
And when you listen to his speech today, addressing the United Nations General Assembly, did you hear from President Obama, a president who is prepared to lead America in this struggle?
What I'm seeing is he's beginning to lay out the step-by-step strategy. And that's really what I think that first speech should have been. Maybe he left the conclusion too quick, degrade and ultimately destroy. There's a lot of steps in between that. And, he laid it out in his General Assembly speech this morning, and then just with the resolution here on foreign fighters. Yes, we've got to degrade and ultimately destroy ISIS, but we need to get, particularly the Muslim world, to totally reject this ideology. We've got to stem the flow of the foreign fighters. We've got to cut off their financing. So there are many pieces of this puzzle, a lot of parts of the strategy. It sounds like President Obama is starting to implement those steps, and I want to be supportive of him, as supportive as I possibly can.
Senator Johnson, thanks very much for joining me.
Thank you.
The view from a Republican senator. Well, in his remarks to the General Assembly, President Obama today went through a long list of the atrocities carried out by the Islamic State, and he included in them rape as a weapon of war. Yazidi women who were taken last month are now giving horrific accounts, and the BBC has heard evidence that there is still about 3,500 women from the minority group being held. Our Middle East correspondent Yulan Nell has gained rare access to some of those who got away.
Suffering and alone. Tens of thousands from Iraq's Yazidi minority are homeless. They know the full horrors of Islamic State after fighters forced them off their land last month. But the worst fate was for those who fell into IS hands. Rasho Elias and his sons tried to defend their village against the heavily armed militants. They bought valuable time for others to escape. But they couldn't help his married daughter Adla. She was held captive with other women and girls, and she's haunted by what she went through. Every day or two, men would come in and make us take off our headscarves so they could choose which of us they wanted. Many were raped. They were dragged out of the house by their hair, she says. We don't know what became of them. Adla's one of the very few who managed to escape. When Yazidi people fled from Islamic State in early August, they were stranded on the barren slopes of Mount Sinjar,